It's not just about the campaign, it's about what does the Democratic Party stand for. Do ordinary people say, yeah, that is a party that is fighting for my interest and prepared to take on the big money interest who control the economic and political life of the country?
You look around the country, a lot of red states were favoring Democratic policy. So I would argue, yes, our product is not the real problem. Our packaging, our messengers, and our distribution is a real problem.
Our political panel, Richard Fowler and David Avella, standing by with their take. But first, Rich Edson is live in Washington. Rich, what are other Democrats saying right now?
Good afternoon, Jackie. Well, they're saying they were just too progressive or not progressive enough. That's at least the basis for a back and forth between former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senator Bernie Sanders. Basically, you've got Sanders now. Pelosi told the New York Times she doesn't respect Sanders, saying that the Democratic Party has abandoned working class families, and Sanders is doubling down on that assessment.
Well, Nancy is a friend of mine, and we've worked together on many issues. But here is the reality. I have to say to Nancy, in the Senate in the last 2 years, we have not even brought forth legislation to raise the minimum wage to a living wage.
Pelosi also told the Times that had President Biden dropped out earlier, there may have been other candidates and an open primary to replace him. Democratic Congressman Seth Moulton is defending his comments that he made to the Times that his party spends too much time trying not to offend anyone, and that as a father of 2 little girls, he shouldn't be afraid to say he doesn't want his daughters getting run over by a formerly male athlete on a playing field. Moulton says his party should also change the way it addresses immigration and public safety.
We were just told to defund the police. But actually, the police are really important to security in our communities. I mean, that's just so out of touch with American voters. So let's have these actual debates and not cancel people for simply bringing this stuff up.
Now, among the next steps for Democrats figuring out a new direction, settling on their next party chair. Democratic National Committee Chairman Jamie Harrison is not expected to run for another term. The party must fill that role by March. Jackie?
And maybe the heir apparent, because when Biden's out of the White House, who takes the mantle? All right, Rich, thank you. John.
All right, let's bring in our political panel. Richard Fowler, Fox News contributor, and GoPac chairman David Avella. Richard's smiling, so clearly the medication's working. I kid. Bill Maher said this about the loss. Listen here.
My message to the losers: losers, look in the mirror. No? Maybe this should. Sorry. Well, that's my feeling. Losers, look in the mirror. For months, Democrats have been saying, how is this even close? And they're right, it wasn't.
So, Richard, are they looking in the mirror? And if they are, what are they seeing and saying?
Well, I think they should be looking in the mirror in this moment, right? And I think oftentimes what you've seen over the past couple of weeks is a focus, and I like to look at this as a deck of cards, 52 cards in a deck. They're spending a lot of time focusing on the face cards. What did or didn't Joe Biden do? What didn't or didn't Kamala Harris do? But let me tell you this, a complete deck of cards is 52 cards. There are a lot of numeral cards or pip cards if you play cards a lot. And I think, and I understand the Democratic infrastructure well, and I think the problem that you have is you have the Democratic infrastructure, numbered cards that over and over again, to the point that Bernie Sanders made at the top of this segment, have failed to identify with the people who have made the Democratic Party, who elected Joe Biden, for the people who elected Barack Obama twice. And I think about Joe Biden's record, and we talked about this election night, John, right? For 4 years, Joe Biden stood by working class people. He helped settle the UAW strike, the longshoreman strike, the railroad strike. None of those were mentioned in this campaign. Nobody talked about what was actually done for working class people. And in all of those strikes, we saw double-digit raises given to those workers. It was an opportunity for the Biden campaign and for the Harris campaign that she inherited to talk about that. And once again, for you to do that, it requires an infrastructure that is geared to the working class, that is geared to understanding what's happening to the American people, that's geared to understanding that public safety is a real problem, that's geared to understanding that immigration is a real problem. And sadly, what we've seen is the people who are running the party are out of touch, and it's causing a lot of too much time in the Beltway.
All right, so if we're going to use the deck of cards analogy, in every deck of cards, there's also 2 jokers, and Lindy Lee, who's a big fundraiser for the Democratic Party, felt that she was dealt both of those. Listen to what she said.
The truth is, this is just an epic disaster. This is a $1 billion disaster. General Mally Dillon promised all of us that Harris would win. She even put videos out saying that Harris would win. I believed her. My donors believed her. And so they wrote massive checks. I feel like a lot of us were misled.
Boy, there's a lot of figure pointing going on.
Well, let's start with the obvious. I'm for them to continue keep doing what they have been doing. And we're going to actually
learn nothing from this.
That's right. But we're going to see this. I mean, you're already hearing it from Democratic governors and attorney generals who say there's just parts of Trump's agenda we're just not going to pursue. We're not going to allow. The Massachusetts governor said we're not going to participate in getting illegal immigrants who are criminals out of Massachusetts. You already hear it out of Gavin Newsom. You already hear it out of Pritzker in Illinois. And if that's the case, and we continue to have Democratic governors and attorney generals pushing the same messaging that the vice president pushed, then you're starting to look at 26, and John Ossoff in Georgia becomes a lot harder for him to win re-election. It becomes a lot harder for Gary Peters in Michigan. So let's go back to my first comment. I'm all for them to continue doing what they're doing.
All right, well, here's what Politico said about Latino voters and the future of the Democratic Party. Why Democrats lost Latinos. That's the title of the magazine article. Donald Trump once again made large gains with Latino voters. Unless Democrats understand what is going wrong, they could be out of power for generations. What's really ironic about that quote is that it wasn't too long ago, within the last 4 years, that all the analysts were saying Republicans have lost touch with rank and file Americans. They might not win another election for generations.
It wasn't too long ago that was said, John. I think I agree with you there. Listen, I congratulate the Trump campaign for running a successful campaign. And I also, to go back to the clip that you played with that donor there, it's also sad that after giving all of those dollars, the Democratic infrastructure, the Harris Walls campaign continued to sort of pull wool over people's eyes. Let's be very clear. It is almost impossible. We can now say officially that it's impossible to run a 13-week presidential campaign against somebody who's running for 4 years, right? And we can acknowledge that as a true statement. Now, with that being said, I think how the party moves forward is they have to decouple and understand that every voter shows up to the ballot box with different issues. And what we saw happen, and we debated this on your show over and over again, was this hyper focus on what will black men do. And we saw what black men did. Black men voted with black women, and they're the second highest voting bloc for the Democratic Party. So instead of focusing on black men, the focus could have been on how do we talk to Latino voters? What are the issues affecting them? Instead of focusing on instead of leaning in. So what I'm saying here is remaking how you sort of make the sausage. Lean in on your base. Your base is always going to be with you. Instead of chastising your base, which you saw the party do, lean in on your base and then figure out how you expand from there. African Americans seem to be with the Democratic Party. They will continue to be with the Democratic Party. How do you use them as a center and build off of that?
Quick last question to you, David, and that is that you have all of these Democratic governors, as you pointed out, Pritzker, Hochul, all of the other governors saying we're going to form the resistance against Trump. 75 million people at last count, and the number's going to go higher, said they don't want our resistance. They want Trump policies to be able to go forward. So it just seems like the Democrats aren't getting it. For them, it's all about fight, 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 resist Trump, as opposed to saying there's 75 million people, the majority of folks in this country, who think he's got some pretty good ideas. Maybe we should figure out how to get some synergy with that.
The core to your premise there is it's spot on. If Republicans do what we should do, if the Trump administration and Congress pushes the tax cuts through and extends them, if we become an energy independent country again, if we know who's coming into this country, if we do just those three things in the next 2 years, voters are going to reward us. Because to your first question, which was, why did Trump do so well amongst groups that we haven't always done well? Because he treated all voters as Americans and what their concerns were, which was the economy and the border. And he said, here's my solutions. And they said, we want to go that direction.
All right. Well, we've got a lot more to chew over between now and the 20th of January and then in the 4 years following that. Richard, David, good to see you. Thank you.
Take care.
Jackie?
Well, the legacy media is suffering a very public MAGA meltdown after voters send President-elect Trump back to the White House. Will anyone be punished? Jonathan Turley with reaction.
And a live look at Manhattan's Upper West Side and the gates of Columbia University, where we expect an anti-Veterans Day protest. Paul Morrow is next on that.